Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to have you here with us in beautiful Marrakech. Maybe you could begin by talking about coming here. I know you've been here for the jury back in 2012, so there's a slight sense of nostalgia. And what does it mean for you to be here this year?
Yeah, 12 years ago, was it? Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was really fun as well. And I love being on juries because you get to experience film in a really intense way. Watching so many films really in a quick succession, it's quite sort of intense for the senses. But also, just being surrounded by people from the film industry that you admire and you get to know personally is really a really lovely thing. Marrakech is so special. One of my first jobs as an actress was here, and I was here for about 4 months. So I just have so many memories of Marrakech, and it's such a magical city. It's really unlike anywhere else. It's so special. And I love this festival just because it's so, I don't know, Melita, who runs the festival, she has done an incredible thing. She gets the people, the most incredibly talented, incredible people to come to this festival, and it's just grown and grown over the years. And it's really nice that the festival, it has a spotlight on African films and also new filmmakers. So these really established film people are kind of being shown this new wave of cinema, which is really important, I think. Yeah, it's great to be a part of it again. I've come a couple of times since being a jury member, or maybe one more time, just to be a part of it and support the festival. So I think it's great.
And what do you make of the jury lineup this year? I mean, led by Luca Guadagnino, and I guess what advice maybe would you give to them? Having been there yourself, like what were you looking for, I guess, in the films when you're judging them, but also kind of being able to watch films from this region, first-time filmmakers, maybe it gives you kind of a fresh perspective on the way you see film.
Yeah, I guess, it's a very democratic process being on a jury. Like, you will have a discussion and the president will have their favourite film, but they have to kind of listen to everybody else's opinion. And I guess films, it's so subjective, isn't it? I remember when I was on the jury, it was the film that kind of stayed with us all, that moved us the most, that won the best film prize, and that's what usually happens. So yeah, I don't know if I can advise anyone, but I guess they'll probably just go with what feels like. For me, it's about a feeling, isn't it? When you watch a film that stays with you, that's really rare, actually, that actually stays with you years to come. And I think that's what they would probably be looking for.
And obviously doing a conversation, have you sort of been thinking about how you're going to approach that? I mean, I think it was Simon Baker said last year that it almost felt like he'd had like this hour-long therapy session in front of it. No, but, maybe even for yourself going back to maybe your formative years, right from the beginning, kind of straddling sort of blockbuster, Hollywood, theatre, indie film. What are your reflections? I mean, I guess that iconic Bond role, how do you see sort of the beginning of your career looking back now?
Yeah, I guess it is weird looking back. And I sort of forget that I've been doing it for ages now as well. Like, I'm not a newbie anymore. And yeah, I've had quite a sort of bizarre career, I think, because I got to a certain point where I wasn't happy with what I was doing, and I was always very content in my theatre work. And then in my film work, I was like, oh, this doesn't feel like me. So I kind of bucked the trend a bit and went more into independent film. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting talking about it. Yeah, we'll see what people want to say. Yeah. I'm always surprised when anyone even knows who I am, or my work. I am. I genuinely feel like I'm a sort of under the radar person. So it's going to be strange doing like a kind of big talk.
And then I guess more recently, taking kind of that agency of your career with Rebel Park Productions. I loved leading lady parts and also working with Vita in Virginia, Summerland. Jessica Swale, funnily enough, was my drama club head when I was at school. But yeah, so what does that feel like? And, what have been some of the highlights of some of that work you've already done so far?
Yeah, it's great. What I love is, I guess it's also coming from theatre, is creating work from scratch. I started off when I was training. I wanted to be, well, I was a devised theatre person. I did a lot of physical theatre. So that's like creating work from nothing and getting ideas together and making something, and then it becomes a piece. And I've always loved that. And so I guess that's what a producer does. You kind of, find the idea, then find the writer, find the director, the actors, and then the crew. And I love that. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes it's shelved for months and years and it's a process. But being a little bit more in control of what you want to say is really nice. And I guess, films like The Escape, Summerland, this TV show that I recently did, Funny Woman, these were all things that came from my desire, what I wanted to do, or finding, or relationships that I already had, like Jessica Swale or Chanya Button, people where you just have a conversation and say, let's make something together. And that for me is really exciting. Yeah. But I'm also I like going with the flow. I like when things just come to me and I'm not a producer on it, and I can just let go and be like, yeah, you deal with that as well. So.
Is it something that you do see though, that, we're making progress, but it's not always as fast as we want it to be in terms of platforming female voices, both in front and behind the camera, kind of showing things from a female perspective, kind of putting female experience front and center. It does feel like, you see more and more of it, but maybe sometimes, it's not the biggest budgets, and you see even like Nicole Kidman recently said, one of the reasons she's been so prolific lately is she's wants to use her name for female directors to get hold of those bigger budgets. And she sort of sees that she can play that role in the industry. So does it feel like women are trying to sort of take things into their own hands a bit more to speed that up?
Yeah, and when you look at especially that generation of actresses, Kate Blanchett, Kate Winslet, Julianne Moore, they're all producing, they're all getting, they're the sort of people that can get things made, and get a decent budget. I find, it's really boring to talk about finance, but it is a huge part of our industry, and it's what stops people from being able to make their second movie or even their first. They make a movie that it has to be not very ambitious in terms of sort of scale, because you're going to get a micro budget for your first film, and especially if even just getting the opportunity to make a first film and having the trust of a BFI, BBC Films, I'm talking UK film industry, is really, really a struggle. But but if you're a woman in the film industry, it's a little bit easier now, and that's a great thing. And there's so much more, there are so many more female filmmakers, but I think it's hard to support them along the way. They may make their first film. It's the second and third films that are really hard to get financed and off the ground. But you just keep going. We keep going, and we need people like as you said, Nicole Kidman, that will come in and get it made. That's really amazing that she's doing that kind of thing.
And reflecting on some of your more recent projects, The Critic, working with Ian McKellen, what was that like?
Oh, it was a joy. He's such a lovely person, and very humble, very playful. Again, comes from the theatre world, so when you work with theatre people, they're not afraid to get it wrong, to play, to experiment. And I didn't feel like we were making a film at times. It felt like we were doing a play. And he's a lovely man. And I got to work with some really cool people on that one, like Leslie Manville, Mark Strong. So yeah, it was a nice one.
And did it make you reflect as well on how you kind of receive reviews over the years? Is that something that you kind of engage with? And I wonder if that's something that's changed maybe about the industry. Is in the past, you could be like, oh, I'm just not going to read the newspaper or the magazine. Whereas now with social media, is it kind of impossible to avoid, even if you want to? You sort of feel like there's no separation anymore? Or?
Yeah, well, I'm not on social media, so I guess I kind of skip that bit. And I tend to try and avoid reading stuff, especially if I'm doing a play. There's no way I'll read reviews if I'm doing a play, because you're still in the process of doing it, and so it can affect your mindset. Even if you read a good one, it can still affect that day how you're going to play it. But I think reviews are important, because that's what kind of gets people drawn in. If you people care about reviews and read them. It's a double-edged sword, I guess. As a performer or an artist, you kind of don't want to kind of engage with that, but at the same time, we need them to get the message out about the piece. So,
and working on Funny Woman, I mean, I guess the thing with TV now, it's definitely sort of broadened the landscape, but there's always that thing of, you know, is there going to be a second season? You know, how far ahead should we be planning? Where's the story arc going? Yeah. So when it does get to continue and you get to fully embody that character and see the deeper layers of it, is that something very satisfying?
Yes and no. Sometimes I feel like sometimes I just wish that a TV series could just exist for like that one series. You know what I mean? Because it's a long commitment, and it's also like as a producer, like now I have projects that I started producing years ago, and now I'm like, no, I'm too old for that. I've moved on. You know, I don't want to do it anymore. Or you know. With TV, it's such a long process that sometimes you move on in your mind, but at the same time, it is good to kind of explore the character in a full way and give the time to character. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing, but
And how do you think you have seen the industry change in terms of a woman working in it? I mean, I know you sort of had films like The Disappearance of Alice Creed, that, you know, you've kind of had to do sort of like difficult scenes maybe in the past. And I think one of the biggest topics has been, you know, some women have looked back, you know, on the early parts of their career and felt like, oh God, I wish we had intimacy coordinators, et cetera, or I wish I had more power to speak up in certain situations. Is that something you've ever felt, or it's actually not really been your experience?
yeah, I guess when I was younger, I was so grateful to be there that I just never felt like I could speak up or that it would be heard or, you know. And I think now the younger generation, I look at the younger generation and think, wow, you know, they don't have to feel as kind of limited. You know, there's all of that stuff since Me Too has really helped with empowering younger people, or anyone really, if you're in a situation where you don't feel comfortable to speak up. For me personally, like with my company, we do this thing where we try to give every when we're crewing up, we try to make sure that every department has had a female. You know, there are as many women in that department as possible, and I've really seen a change there, especially in crew, like female DPs and camera women, and you know that's amazing. It's still a long process. But it's like something that you know is really at the forefront of our minds when we're making things now. So it's changed a lot. But then also I'm older now, so I feel like more. You know, I've found my voice a little bit more. I think for younger people, it's such a temperamental industry in that, you know, you never know if you're going to work again. So it's hard for people to kind of say, no, I want this, I want that, without feeling like I'm going to get fired or, you know, I'm going to get a bad reputation or, you know, that kind of thing. But I think it's easier now to speak up.
Intimacy coordinators, you know, people you've worked with a lot. I mean, it's funny that for some people it does feel a bit controversial, or there's kind of been a pushback, whereas I guess from the outside it would seem like only ever be a positive thing. But do you have any strong feelings about that?
I think it's amazing. I think it's brilliant. I know Ita O'Brien, who created, well, she's the sort of person that started it. And it's just amazing what she's done in the past, literally like 6-7 years. It just takes away the awkwardness and the conversations. They are the person that are the go-between between the producers and director and the actor. If there's anything that you don't feel comfortable with, they are the ones that go and sort it out, break it down like you would a stunt. They break it down, or a dance, into sections. And I know that might feel so like a bit limiting for some people that want to be spontaneous, but for me it's like anything. You learn the technique and then you let go of it in the moment. And I think it's really important. And I just welcome it. I think it's brilliant that
riffing on what you were saying earlier about, you know, this generation of Kate Blanchett, Kate Winslet, Nicole Kidman. I feel like one of the biggest things that's changed is you get to a certain age as a woman and you're still doing these meaty, complex leading roles, whereas maybe in the past it used to be either you were the kind of ingenue or you were playing the mother. So do you feel like that's one of the key things that's changed?
Yeah. I mean, I'm such a huge fan of Kate Winslet, and I think, you know, she's spoken out a lot about that and is really embodying, like, owning her age. And I think that that's such a big talking point for actresses, is about aging in the industry and being able to portray people, and that those people are of value and are interesting. Yeah, and the more that we see that on screen, the more. I mean, these characters have like wealth of life behind them and like experience, and they're so interesting to watch. And so yeah, I'm edging towards that period now. I'm sort of doing a bit of I'm getting into a new phase in my career in terms of the characters I'm playing, and it's tricky to navigate actually, but it's exciting because it's something different and you've got to go out of your comfort zone. So I'm so inspired by those actors. I look at them and think, wow, they're doing it. So
Thank you so much for sharing all that with me.
yeah, that's
Really
okay.
enjoy the rest of the time in Marrakech
Thank you.
and with the conversation.
You
Thanks so much.
too.